Welcome back to Shit Creek Survivors. We share real stories of people getting stuck up Shit Creek, the paddles they use to get out, and hope for anyone stuck up their own Shit Creek right now. Today's episode explores something most people don't fully understand until they've actually lived it. What actually happens to your mind, identity, and decision-making after a near-death experience. Our guest today is Lorri Brewer. She's an author and verified near-death experience survivor. In 2010, Lorri went through a life-threatening medical emergency that required 39 minutes of resuscitation. But what makes her story different isn't what happened after. She didn't come back with instant clarity or transformation. She came back disoriented, questioning her identity and having to rebuild how she thinks, decides, and functions in the real world while still carrying the weight of her near-death experience. Today, we're going to explore what survival actually does to the mind and how people rebuild after everything changes. Let's get into it. Lorri, thank you so much for coming to Shit Creek Survivors today. If you would, introduce yourself to us and let us know a little bit about yourself before the creek.
So before the creek, first of all, Cameron, I have now got a chance to get to know you a little bit, and I'm going to try not to get all emotional. I got a chance to get to know you a little bit, and I am very grateful for sharing your story with me. It's very impactful, and it
Of course.
also, not only does it impact me, it also validates and helps me because it shows me that I'm on the right path. So from survivor to survivor, this still remains to be my bridge. I don't come here with all the answers. I come here saying, it's tough out there, and this is where it is. I don't hide away from anything. I don't shy away from anything. The up shit creek without a paddle is we all get up shit creek. This is what happens. And so when I
Oh,
hear
yeah.
your story, I feel the survival. I see the victory at the end. It leaves me with hope to keep doing what I keep doing. So thank you with all sincerity.
Awesome.
Thank you for your experience and for sharing and moving stuff forward. It's hugely beneficial. So
Thank you so much.
my story is my life before, so it's so funny, probably as a near-death survivor, you can appreciate this. We seem to have two lives. We have a life before near death, and then we have a life after death. And so we will mark when we happen in things in life, we will say, we will have a timeline, oh, that was pre-near death, or that was pre-this. And our line of division is what happened before my near death. So my life before my near death was, I was born of a family of 6. So my mom and dad had 6 children. I was in one of them. Very early on, it's so funny because I never talk about this on podcasts, but from hearing your story, I realize how everything intermingles with one another and how everything is very much balanced with another human being and very relatable. So people out there are not by themselves because it's relatable, not only to you, but to me and to everyone else.
Yeah.
So born into a family of 5, I'm the 6th children. My mom and dad had 4 children before I was born. 4 children. On Thanksgiving weekend, there was a horrible accident with very unfortunate circumstances, and one of the children passed away in the car accident. And so that was very traumatic for that little young family.
Yeah. I'm so
Within
sorry.
16 months later, I was born. So I wasn't born to a family that wanted a child. I was born to a family that was trying to put life back together to find hope and to find love, but that is the hardest time after 16 months to pop a new baby into this world. Today, it's inconceivable that a woman would have a baby 16 months after a child is killed tragically in a car accident, and the child was only 10 years old. So as a baby popping into this world, my first reaction, my first knowledge of family base, of course I was loved, but my purpose growing up into this family was, in my opinion, how I feel growing up. I'm not saying they did this to me, but my joy was to bring my mom joy, bring my dad joy, be something for my
Mhm.
sisters and for my brother. And not that I was not wanted, but my mom wasn't able to care for a child, so my older sister had to care for me. She was like maybe 16, 17, maybe in her
Oh, wow.
teens.
Yeah.
So she had to be a mom at a very early age. Now, growing up, I was never resentful of that, but I was very confused having two moms as a very tiny baby.
Right.
So I knew early on that my function in life was not to take, but to give. And if you weren't giving with purpose, you were useless. And that was my
Uh,
first initial reaction into what this world was. So I always became very purposeful for every human being.
okay.
So that's how my before worked. And it's very important to know that so you understand my today, it's totally different. So growing up, so now I'm a teenager. Um, my sisters are all married. Everybody's married and out of the home. It's me and my younger brother now because my younger brother, we can't just have one child who's going to be alone. So they had a second child underneath me. So now we have two
Okay.
families. We have two sets of siblings, one that had that world and one that had after death world. So there's always been a
Right.
very line of division. So with that line of division, me and my younger brother, we learned a different way of life than my older siblings. So there's two
Right.
families in my one family, same parents, but two families.
Mhm.
So now you grow up, and now as a teenager, I start becoming involved with the police in the little cadet program at the age of 13, 14. Started doing foot patrol and marching and doing all that stuff a little cadet would do. So they would groom them. So hopefully you would pop out and be a policeman at 18, 19. So that was my
Mhm.
plan all my life is I was going to be a City of Edmonton policeman, City of Edmonton constable, and that's where I was going. That was my plan. I went through recruiting. That was my goal. That was my dream. My family members were policemen. So it wasn't a long shot. You come from a family of police.
Right.
You do hundreds of hours of ride along. So you get to see the deep down and dirty at the level that most people don't see. So
Right.
that groomed my life from a very police, law enforcement, justice background where black was black and white was white. Then,
Yeah.
as you're going through, so now I get married, I have a child, I only have one son who is my greatest blessing to this day. When I get married and I move along, one of the things that my mother-in-law at the time said to me when I was trying to go through the police service, I had a cardiac condition. And the cardiac condition that they found was called a supraventricular tachycardia. And basically what happens is there's two chambers to the heart, an upper and a lower chamber. And when the heart pumps,
Okay.
it squeezes from the bottom, it goes through the pacemaker, like the battery chip. The battery chip tells, oh, pump the top part, and it's kind of like the computer chip of the system. What happens in my heart
Yeah.
is the heart doesn't pump anymore. It just quivers because the battery chip has too many electrical currents and it bypasses the body's pacemaker, and it bypasses it so the pacemaker doesn't work. The AV node doesn't work, and it just quivers and my heart quivers. So I have to go into the
Okay.
hospital, stop my heart. I have an arrhythmia. So it's not like you get an asthma attack and you can just suck an inhaler and you're good to go. You can be on a foot chase.
Right.
I don't have that. So as a policeman, my police career, my police recruiting just went downhill from my heart condition.
Oh.
I had 3 heart surgeries. I tried. It just didn't work. So some people were
Mhm.
happy about that in my family because I already had a child, and they didn't want, because you had a child, that was a career in itself. So you shouldn't be taking on a police career. So some people were happy that it didn't work out. So I had to do something. So my mother-in-law at the time said, she lost her husband at an early age. She goes, well, if you don't do something and your husband passes away, you got to have a career. So I went into real estate. And so real estate was a way to have justice for people who were selling their homes, who weren't going to get ripped off. That was my little form of giving back in my little world. That was my world of control because I lost my identity. I lost who I thought I would be for the rest of my life. So I went through a little bit
Yeah.
at a very young age of 26. I had to re-identify who I was that I thought I would be. So that's just a compound that goes on top of everything else. So that's the compound of growing up, my compound. That's who I was before. And then I became a real estate broker. So I'm still a real estate broker, but my career was not about fiction. It wasn't about energy. And when you are when you're on the street and you're a policeman, you are dealing with real people. You don't talk in terms of energy or frou-frou stuff. You are talking in terms of hardcore, what is happening, facts, because facts will keep you alive. Frou-frou is going to
Right.
kill you. That's how it is. So in real estate, I deal in facts. I deal in numbers and sold comparables and data comps. That's what I deal in. And that is a comfortable world for me because I can
Mm.
validate it beyond a shadow of a doubt. Put something where it's airy fairy and you've got to talk about heaven. Yeah, it's good, but not that I'm atheist to it. I just can't see it,
Right.
touch it, feel it. So I'm not quite sure if it's there. So I come from a very factual part of that was me before. Very concrete,
Yeah.
very logical. I assess my situation. I'm very logical. That makes for people like us, that makes surviving, just so you know, really hard. People like us go out kicking and screaming because we live in the tangible. And to ask somebody who is mentally stuck in tangible to ask us to believe in something intangible, you, you you might as well tell me Santa Claus is real because that's hard for us. So when people are really stuck
Yeah.
in tangible, that is one of the things that they have to overcome because it's hard to understand that there is an intangible other side of the coin. Does that make sense?
Right.
That
It
makes
does.
that
Yeah.
makes our journey way harder. That's why some people will say, "I've had a really hard journey." Other people will say, "I didn't have a bad journey. It wasn't that bad." I had to always understand why is some people can have a really good journey and I struggled. Like everything that was a struggle, I had every single struggle. I don't know why I went out tooth and nail fighting because I was so tangible. It was just difficult, so difficult. So I'm not saying don't believe in tangible. I'm saying life is duality. There's two sides to a coin. There's tangible and there's intangible. There's light and then there's darkness. If you just surrender to the fact that life has two sides to the coin, your journey moving through the shit will be a lot easier.
Agreed.
That's my first tip when everybody has a nervous system that is just fried right now. Just stay in peace because there is two sides to the coin. Whether you believe it or not, you just have to have faith. There's two sides to the coin. I promise you. Don't make that journey so tough. So that's who I was before.
Yeah.
I was and you and I can agree on that. You and I can relate to that bonding side of tangible fact, we can relate to that quite good because that's where we are comfortable. That's where we are the
Yeah.
most comfortable. So that was
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
before. Very factual, very strict, very disciplined because when you come from, a militant or a police background, like you are very disciplined. You get up at the same time, you make your bed every day, you had a routine. It was very strict. You had your
Yeah.
calls, that's what was the part that made my survival way harder. You'd think it would be better, it wasn't.
Yeah. I've never had anyone explain it like that, but that makes a lot of sense when you are used to looking at a situation and picking it apart between, legal and not legal. You're looking very closely at the exact definitions and where does this fall in whatever category. That makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that you mentioned it that way. I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate.
And you also said something earlier about ego. So there's a difference between ego and control. When you come from a background where you need control, control is what will keep you alive. So whether it's a member on the street, it's military, it's a nurse, it's a first responder like a paramedic, control and assessment will keep you alive, will keep the patient alive, will be for the greater good, that control is not a negative thing. That control is what we need to function in society. So it's not
Okay.
ego, it's the control of what we do. You are based in a control body nervous system. Your body is safe when you are in control, not ego. Ego is when
Mm,
I am better than anybody else because I'm in control and you are not. You don't have ego, you have control. And when we come from a controlled environment where we feel safe, and then we have a fracturing, a shifting, a shooting, um, a death. When we have a fracturing within us, we have lost all control, which then puts our nervous system in shit creek. That is when you are
yeah.
in the middle of it and you are drowning and you can't figure it out because that creek
Yeah.
is flowing so fast underneath you, you can't get your feet. You try to get your feet by doing the same control patterns that you did before, by
Hmm.
assessing the situation, looking at people around you. Who's going to be in my life? Who's not going to be in my life? What's going to be in control? How do I calm my body down? Drugs, alcohol, opiates, doesn't matter. How am I going to gain control? So then behaviors come in. When our nervous system is shot, we do control behaviors to gain control of the situation. That's why if we normally wouldn't do it, we are doing it now. Maybe it's obsessive, like sexual activity. We are trying to gain some form of control where we have lost
Yeah.
it. And that's why
Yeah.
people are going to try to treat the alcoholism or their drug addiction when, yes, you still have to treat the alcohol and drug. Yes, you do. But that's just
Hmm.
that's the surface, owie. You got to go a little bit deeper and say, okay, well, wait a second here. We're totally out of control. That person, there's 3 stages, and that stage is victim. It's a victim, not victim, you're a bad person. Oh, woe is me, victim. You are a
Right.
victim of a circumstance, of a situation that has put you out of control and out of your normal life. So you are in victim mode because you have been a victim of a horrible situation that you never asked for. You didn't ask for a bullet in your face. You didn't ask for that. You were in a situation that put you out of control and you are trying to get back into control. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does make sense. It's actually hitting pretty deep. Yeah.
That's why when people are fractured after an event and they have behaviors that others are going to look at and kind of judge them for, I have a
Hmm.
very different perspective of where they're coming from. So I look at them as, is this victim? Is this survivor? Or is this victorious mode? Like we have three banks. So if you imagine,
Okay.
which I love the imagery of literally Shit Creek. Shit Creek is you've got 2 sides of the bank. You've got one side of the bank was your pre-life. The flowing
Yeah.
stream, the creek, is when you fall into the creek, whether you put yourself there or a situation threw you there. And then you've
Hmm.
got the other side of the creek. But while you're trying to get your footing in a fast flowing creek, it's hard to get out because you're scrambling for the other side of the bank and it's not going to
Yeah.
happen. So what we do, you and I, is we quickly build a bridge from inside that creek and we build a bridge to the other side of the bank and we help people get from the bridge to the other side of the bank. You can't just get in the middle of a fast flowing creek on the flung to the other side of the bank. It's not going to happen.
Right.
You have to have a bridge. Something is going to bridge you to the other side. And so those bridges are what is saving a lot of people today, whether they have the awareness of it or not. So
Yeah.
my thrown into the thing was the day I died, September, like you say, when we talk about it, September 19th, 2010. I remember it like It's not a dream. I remember it just like yesterday. I can feel the clothes on my back. I can feel what I did. I knew every single moment.
It's Yeah, it's more than a memory. Like,
Mm.
it's not a dream, it's not a memory, it's more than a memory. It's an experience where you can go back to every second, feel, taste, smell. It's unbelievable. I'm so glad that you're mentioning that, because sometimes I feel a little out there when I'm discussing it with people who haven't been through it, but the fact that you're able to reciprocate is very powerful. I appreciate it.
Because what happens is the memory is a recall. The memory and the consciousness is a recall. When we're going through something of that magnitude is no longer in our brain. It's no longer a memory. It's no longer a dream. It's now something of a different level. It's now of a higher consciousness that it's accessible, whether we sometimes like it or not. Whether I like it or not, sometimes I'll be doing something and I'll have a quick flashback to that and I'll be like, yes, 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 I remember that. And it's like, I feel it all over my body again. Or if I have to go be with somebody who had just passed away or they're sitting in crisis, I can slip right back into that all over again, not even knowing. It's just like thrust upon me. So I get caught with it still sometimes. So even if I'm doing something, I still easily get caught with it. And then I
Right.
remember, oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh God, that's where that's coming from. But the memory of what has happened. So on that night that I died, so there's not good or bad. So there's another thing I have to tell you too. So when people are shifting, they come from a world of concrete control. So whether you're a
Mhm.
business owner, you're a mom, whether your world of your environment of tangible concrete in control, when you slip to a fracture, a splitting of a death or something, maybe it was. So can I just ask you a question because I don't know?
Sure.
And if this bothers you, just tell me, okay? So
Okay.
that day that you were in the middle of it, did you know in that moment you were going to get shot? Like, did you have a moment of it? And what I'm saying is this, when I first had my SVT, soon as I had my SVT, I'm like, I'm not coming home. And I didn't know that that meant death. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't see it coming, but in that second that I was assessing, I knew I wasn't coming home. So I'm just curious, when in that moment, was it like, I may not come home? Like, what was the awareness like? Can we, can, is,
Oh, it I'm gonna tell you something very strange, okay? I, uh, I was standing there on the police line the night I got shot, and right before I got shot, I watched a red car come from my right and then turn right in front of me and move away from me. I looked over to my left, and I had a thought in my head, "Grandma would want you to look at that red car." And right as I looked at that red car is when I got shot, and it turns out because I turned towards it, it spun me instead of blowing out the back of my head. Now, the other part of that is when I hit the ground, I did believe 100% I was gonna die there, and I couldn't believe I was going to die. I was like, "Am I really gonna die on the ground, sitting here around no one I love?" I felt very alone in that moment. And then I was saying my last prayer and everything like that, like, "God, I'm sorry for any of my sins," and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there was a lot going on in that moment. Even when I hit the ground, there was a lot going on in that moment. I actually had this thought, I haven't loved enough people to go to heaven, which, tracing back, was attached to this childhood trauma that I had, that I had basically convinced myself at 5 years old, if I'm good enough, I can earn my way back into heaven. And now I'm laying there as a 33-year-old just been shot in the head, believing I'm not going to heaven because I haven't loved enough people. So it was amazing as how much stuff happened in that brief period of time. It must have been a minute.
so it breaks my soul when I hear that. Like that just hurts my soul to hear,
Oh,
right? So when you have enough loved enough people, so I'm going to explain how in that moment when people are going to transition, when they're about to transition, there is a special knowing. This is where my I'm a control freak. I'm just going to own it right now because I am a control freak, and that's what people pay me for, is being a control freak. So when
There you
I
go.
control the file, when I'm a control freak, when control people have the higher knowledge, it's like grandma would want you to look. There is a higher knowledge that comes in when the body is going to transition. People will often say, I knew that was going to happen. And that is coming from somewhere. People on hospice beds will always see people who are, and they're getting ready to go. This is just a fact. It's just how our bodies are made. It's just how the energy is made. So that's why it's
Right.
very important when your journey started fighting right from that moment. That is when your fight started, because you lost control in that one moment. And that is when first responders, usually that was, in my opinion, your first near-death moment, because you don't
Hmm.
have to die to have a near-death experience. A near-death experience just means everything within your physical body, your tool, was fractured in half and split. And that fracture has now changed the rest of your life for how your course is going to be, whether you did it or didn't do it. That fractured you. That was your first near-death experience. That was the death. Because as you're laying there, you're going, seriously, I'm not going to die. You have the awareness, I'm not going to die here. That is your fight or flight. When I was in that specific moment, I'm like, Jesus, take me. I'm done. Like, get me the hell out of here. I was not fighting. I'm like, Jesus, take the wheel. I'm out of here. Like, I couldn't care less. I surrendered immediately. I became the biggest wussy. It's like, take me now. I don't care. Calgon, take me away. I'm done. You were like, wait a minute. You went out kicking, screaming, and like, wait a minute. I'm not dying on this thing. I didn't love enough people. Oh, no. Oh, no. You went out with your gloves on and you're like, oh no, I'm going to fight now. That is where the trajectories split. When you go to surrender, people will do one of two ways. People will be in very hard, different calls I'm sure you've been on. There's people have defied the odds of living or dying. They should have been dead by all, but their will to live is like, I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of killing me. And for some reason, they ended up living. The will to live, the fight to live is very powerful. And that, my friend, is what you had in you laying there. And that is when your fight began. But it didn't begin with the world. It began with you. That's what
Mm.
fractured within you, is to now it was a pull between two people in one body. Who am I? Who was I? Who am I? Who was I? That's when the fracture started. And that's exactly when I popped back after my near death. That's exactly when my fracture started. So
Okay.
right? So we had the same fracture, and that's when I'm like, who was I? My fight when I got brought back here, they resuscitated me. So now I'm in, let's talk about the death. Are we good up to this point?
Yeah, we're
Do you
doing
have a
great. Yeah,
question?
let's make sure no, I was going to say, let's make sure we mention what happened. You
Yeah,
know,
I'm in the water.
y-
So let me tell you now what's happening. So
okay,
September 19th, 2010, I had a previous heart condition that wouldn't let me be a policeman. And the heart condition is
right.
called a supraventricular tachycardia. It's never going to kill you. Never. It's like an asthma attack that sends me to the hospital. It should never kill you. However, you have to be careful because the heart is a muscle. And if you let it go into SVT for too long, it'll just stop and you won't get cardioverted. So on September
Okay.
19th, it was a beautiful day. I could never have caffeine. I had to always watch what I was eating, could never have chocolate. I was on beta blockers. I've had 3 heart surgeries to try to fix it. Nothing was working. But on September 19th, my husband and I husband at the time went to bed, and it was so odd because before an SVT comes on, I can kind of feel it in my body. I can feel it in my neck. I can feel it in my left arm. You get the urge to pee like you're having a heart attack. Like I can feel when it's coming on. So as I'm having this feeling that I'm going to have an SVT, I can do a vagal massage. Like I can do different things that help me. I can bear down. This time I was in bed, I was sound asleep, and it was like somebody put their hand on my face and my mouth, and they blocked my nose and my mouth so I couldn't breathe, and they like pushed my head into the pillow really hard, and I couldn't get the air off, and then I sat up gasping, and I was in a full-blown really bad SVT. Now a bad SVT is about, 180 beats a minute or quivers, 190.
Wow.
This one was like 225, 230, 235, to the point where I was
Oh,
nauseous, to
wow.
the point where if I closed my eyes, I was going to pass out. And I kept thinking, for God's sakes, don't pass out, don't pass out, don't pass out. And I remember thinking, I know I'm not coming home. So I don't wear a lot of makeup. And I tell this all the time, and sometimes that people think I'm vain or I'm just nuts. But we have to appreciate now I am a control person. So being in control, I'm not going to go to the morgue. I know what the morgue looks like. I know what happens there because of my experience. I know what happens
Right.
with the undertaker. I know. So I don't want
Mhm.
the morgue to see my unshaved legs. So I go to the bathroom. I'm in a full SVT. I shave my legs. I dry shave my legs because I'm not going to have a toe tag on hairy legs. I shave my
That's so
legs.
funny.
I put my makeup on. And I made sure that my eyeliner was nice and it wasn't caked on, and I had nice mascara and not too much eyeshadow and a little bit of blush. And I put on deodorant because I know what the smell is like in some of those places.
Yeah.
And I put on perfume because I wanted my body to not smell like the other dead bodies. So I know what I'm doing. I've got this under control. So that was my way of keeping control when I know I'm I'm in the shit of it. Like
Right.
I'm not going out this way. I'm not going out this way. So we went to the
Right.
hospital. My husband took me to the hospital. We get there, and the ER, it was the most chaotic time. Every single time I've gone there was like 100 times before. Every time I'm a frequent flyer. I go in there, they look at me. I've got the IV. I'm within 3 to 5 minutes, I'm hooked up. I've got everything going. Within 15, 20 minutes, I'm totally converted. This time, not so much.
Right.
This time, the emergency room was full. 20 minutes later, 25 minutes later, they can't get the IV in. Well, now because my blood pressure is dropping so badly, my veins are now harder to get an IV in. Everything is
Yeah.
failing and failing and failing. So now I'm telling my husband, I said to him, okay, so with my son, this is what we're doing and this is where the money, and my mom, she relied on me for food because she was elderly. You got to do this. I'm still giving my marching orders because I'm still in control.
Yeah.
I'm giving and he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't know that meant death. It never processed that was death. And I said, okay. And I was and he goes, why are we doing this? He goes, just wait, somebody's coming. And I said, no, I'm not going to make it. I said, I'm not going home. I know I'm not going home. He goes, don't talk like that. And I said,
Wow.
I'm not going to make it. He goes, you're talking, that's stupid. He goes, that's self-fulfilling prophecy. He goes, and he's like trying to be that motivational, you got this. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
listening. I'm not staying. Like I know I'm going. I know I'm not going to make it. And so they get me to the other side. And as soon as they I wasn't even in the code room. I wasn't even in the emergency room where they could call a code. I wasn't even there yet. I was still in one of the little holding bays. I wasn't even being looked at.
Yeah.
They couldn't do nothing for me. And so the minute I started dropping, they moved me into where they do the resuscitations and they put me in there. And as soon as I heard code blue, as soon as I heard that, I thought, what I thought was, oh my God, somebody else is going to get help. I'm never going to get help. That's what I thought. And then they kept going 56 over 27. And that was my blood pressure, 56 over 27.
Whoa.
But in my brain, I was going, you want me to, because there's not enough blood in my brain right now. I'm thinking to myself, you want me to divide 56 by 27? Do I put 26 into 57? Which number goes up? That's what my brain was trying to do because I was
Yeah.
in control of my situation. I was the most not in control of the situation. But when we go into horrific situations, our brain, our body, our nervous system is built to keep us protected and alive. So it goes into control mode. It goes into, I'm going to protect you mode. So we don't get a say in that. We just are in automatic, I'm in control and I've got to fix this. So when I
Yeah.
realized that I wasn't going to fix it is when one of the other male nurses came in, which at the time I thought was a doctor. Male nurse came in and the IV wasn't even in my arm yet. Like it was probably 30 minutes. My IV wasn't even in my
Hmm.
arm. He took the IV out, put it in the other arm, and I was now throwing up. So when your body starts to die in transition, I did not know this. Again, thank God I didn't know this. It starts losing bodily functions. So I wasn't aware of that. So when I started throwing up,
I didn't know.
yeah, when the body starts to transition to die, it just lets go. And so as a
Mm.
control person, if you think for 1 second, I'm going to pee my pants, well, baby, you got another thought coming because I ain't pissing on no gurney. So I'm in full control of what's happening. And I kept saying,
Right.
I have to pee, I have to pee. And then it's like, and then I'm like, and then I started throwing up. Throwing up when your body is dying is not like the good old heave that you get. You don't get a diaphragm heave. There's no,
Right.
the body cannot heave no more. So you open your mouth and then just puke falls out. Like there's no heaving. That's how the body
Oh,
releases. So I'm sorry to be
okay.
gross, but
No, it
the
makes sense.
problem is when the body is releasing, so does something else. Something else in my brain says, I'm clearly no longer my body. It became clear to me that me of my soul, me of a daughter, of a mother, of a wife, of a sister, is no longer that. My body is not that. So I really had a differentiation between my body and my soul, my personality, my character, my spirit. It really became clear to me that my body is just a tool. It's nothing more than that, nothing more.
Mm.
So that
Right.
was my first realization without knowing it. That's how I figured out years later. Without knowing it, that was my first split that my body was not me of who I am. And then
Right.
next thing I know, this male nurse came up and he said, you're in good hands, like they all do. And my thought was, well, I'm going to good hands. That's where I was going. And out I went. I was there. And as soon as that happened, I was with my dad, who had passed away 2 years previous. I was with my dad at the end of the hospital bed, and everybody around this area, like, it was all dark, and everybody around this thing, you couldn't see them like people. You just seen them like the infrared, like the firemen have, when they go through fires,
Yeah.
or the home
Yeah.
inspectors. It was kind of
Yeah.
like an infrared camera, but they weren't red and blue. They were kind of like gray blobs. So I couldn't
Okay.
see if that was a boy or girl, long hair, short hair, black, white. I couldn't tell. And I seen all the blobs, but then I looked on the table and there was just one blob that had no more energy. And I looked and I was like, I don't understand. I, I don't get it. Like I don't understand. And I was
Right.
with my dad, and there's no talking, there's no voice. And being with dad was normal. It was like I was always with him. It wasn't like I didn't know he was dead because I didn't know I
Yeah.
was dead. And I just said to him, ugh, and it's so, if you hit a tuning fork or a vibration of a really, or the nails on a chalkboard or something that just makes your teeth go, oh, that's how
Yeah.
loud it was in there that everything was like, oh, this is too hard in here. And I was like, Dad, get me out of here. Like, this is too loud. And then I could hear the people at the nurse's desk really complaining. They were really they were really complaining about somebody came in, it's not his case, and who is he? And they're just complaining. And I kept thinking, I don't understand why they're so like, get me out of here. So we went
Right.
somewhere dark, very black, 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 black,
Mhm.
black, dark, 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 darkness. The darkest darkness we talked about. The darkest
Yeah.
darkness, I had the same darkness, the blackest darkness. And I was sitting there with my dad in the blackest darkness. Now, I wasn't afraid. Had my dad not been there, I might have been afraid. But my dad was there and we
Right.
were sitting in such calm darkness. And people think in their brains when that darkness is there, they seem to think that it's bad energy. No. When I was in that darkness, it was calm, it was peace, it was loving, it was like, but you got to go back. And he was like trying to, and I know there's no touching. And he's like, you, and I love you. And my dad was not one for lovey dovey. He was always making me the tough girl. My dad, I think I've now seen some documents of his. He's wanted, after he passed away and my mom passed away, then I got all the stuff. My dad actually wanted to be a policeman. He never ever said that to me, but my dad actually, I found a journal note writings how he wanted to be a policeman and his application for the RCMP. So when I saw that, I was kind of pissed because it was like, you never told me this after all the recruiting classes I went through and after all of the recruits. You didn't tell me this. Like, that would have been a big thing to
Right.
tell me, but nope. So he's like, you got to go back and I love you. And it was so gentle. And I'm like, I'm not going back. I'm staying right here. Now I have my son back home. I have my mom who needs me. I had a husband. We had a business. He relied on me. I had people who relied on me. I had staff who relied on me. So me not being here was a very big inconvenience for many, 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 many people. And I didn't care. I didn't care. And I'm like, I'm
Right.
staying. Dad's like, no, you're going. And next thing I know, he bumped me and I went through this really super white tunnel. And I always explain it like this. In the movie Avatar, when they go through that really white tunnel, when they go from the human bodies to the purple beasts, when they go to convert to be the big purple avatar beast, they go through a little white tunnel. It's kind of like that, but super, super white. And I went through the tunnel and then I popped back out and I guess my eyes were open and I was looking at my dad's face and I thought, oh, thank goodness. And then I looked around and I could see the lights like the hospital. And I'm like, I'm confused. Where's the darkness? Then I'm looking at my dad's face, and then my husband's face would float in, and then my dad's face. And I'm looking at him thinking, like, I don't even know. And I'm talking to him telepathically like I did with my dad. And I'm saying, like, well, where am I? And he's just sitting there dumbfoundedly looking at me like, and he's not responding. And I'm thinking, and then it dawned on me, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I have to use the tool. And I'm like, where am I? Oh, he goes, you're at the hospital. No. And I was thinking in my head, no, where am I? Like, where's the darkness? And I said, what happened? I mean, what happened to the darkness? What happened to dad? And I'm like, what
Right.
happened? He goes, you had an SVT. And none of this was, my brain wasn't computing. And so finally, like it had to go through several times. And I said, where's dad? And then he looked at me and when somebody looks at you and they think you're totally nuts and you get that,
Yep.
what's wrong with,
Yep.
you get that, what's wrong with you look. And then when I said, where's dad? He was like, and I'm like, and that's when I started to panic because I'm like, no, 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 I know dad was there. You're not going to tell me dad wasn't. And he's looking and he said, um, I said, well, what happened? What happened to dad? I'm thinking. And he goes, you had an SVT. I'm like, well, where's dad? And his face is slowly getting sadder. And he's like, you're, And then I looked at him and I said, "Dad." And then it dawned on me, my dad wasn't here. And then I started to cry and I'm like, my dad, my dad isn't here. And then I'm like, well, where the hell am I? And so I was so confused. This nurse came up
Yeah.
and they were settling me. This nurse came up and she put a little piece of paper in my hand and she had said, "You're going to have trouble." She goes, "We lost you and you're going to have trouble. So you're going to want to read some books on near death experiences." And I was like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Like, I come from a world of math and I don't even, I thought people who had near death experiences, I thought they were psychotic. I thought
Yeah,
they,
me too.
I thought they were attention seeking. I thought they were not well, unstable. So you're not going to,
Mhm.
oh, we're not going down that path. Oh, no, no. That's when I fought it. That's when I said, Uh, yeah, this is not gonna go good. No, no, get me something tangible. So that's when, that's the beginning of things going very bad for me. Like, that was the moment of, you would have thought the death was, no, the death was easy.
Mhm.
The death was nothing. The death was peace. You would have thought that survival was to try to live. No, survival has been trying to live on this land with the fracture and knowing what I know. The survival is trying to
Mhm.
be surviving today. Today is what I'm still surviving. Today is what I work
Yeah.
at. So that's where survival comes from. Questions
Yeah.
now? Does that make sense? Does that help? Fill
It
in the blanks?
it does make sense because when I kinda came back, everyone's looking at you. First off, I came out of a coma. I didn't realize I'd been in a coma. I thought I was out for maybe, like, a day, a night, something like that. Everyone's looking at me like, "Oh my gosh." I've got a nurse crying, "You're alive." And I'm just like, I'm still thinking about where I was, but no one understands what I'm saying to them. They keep looking at me like I'm crazy. Like I was in this darkness and then a pinprick of light, and they're like, "Okay, okay, easy now, easy," and they just kind of didn't. It's strange, yeah, because you've got a lot of questions about your experience, but to them, the experience was, "You've been in bed for 5 weeks. You haven't had an experience." You're like, "Yes, I have. I've had a more tangible experience than I've ever had before." But when you're saying it to people who haven't had the experience, it's really, you can see it, it's hard for them to absorb. You know what I mean? It's just like, so you kind of back off. You're like, okay, never mind. I won't talk about this as much. But then on my own, I kept kind of trying to figure out. First off, I was trying to just disprove that it happened to me because if heaven is for real, I was living the wrong way. So it would be a lot easier if it wasn't there and the lights would just go out. But yeah, it's strange. And I woke up angry too. I woke up like, I don't want to be here. Like the pain's back, first off, mentally, physically, spiritually. There's no sense of love. There's no sense of connection. It feels like a cold world, and you're just like, get me out of this hospital. And everyone who's telling you it's going to be okay gets to go home at the end of the day. You're still stuck in the hospital the whole time. And you're like, I just get me out of here, and you're just trying to get through it. It's so I hate to say it like this, but it's refreshing to hear somebody else talk about that confusion afterwards because it is confusing.
It
It's not just a gift like, "Oh, heaven is for real." You're like, "Great, but what?" You know what I mean? There's a whole like what? And it shifts everything. And then the more you look at it, it shifts your life a little bit more and your vision goes from being very tunnel to like anything's possible, and you start researching and
Yep.
finding people who have been in there and you're like, wow, that is nuts.
It's so funny you mentioned control. So the minute I popped out, so I was in, so what they were doing is they were trying to revive me. So apparently after, because now I have to get the story from after what happened. So after they lost
Right.
me, they, I, so I didn't understand at that time. I thought my heart just stopped. No, what happened was I think it's fentanyl or one of those drugs. They
Yeah.
overdosed. They overdosed me on fentanyl, like
Oh
way too
no.
much. And they couldn't figure out because what happens is what there was, but in fairness to the situation, there must have been 14. 15 people in there. There was nurses and
Mhm.
doctors and techs and an anesthesiologist and the bagger guy. There were so many people in the room. It wasn't even organized chaos. It was just a storm of chaos. So I can see how this would happen. I'm not angry. I'm not upset, but they couldn't understand why they shocked me and the heart wasn't going back to normal. So normally you cardiovert. And so what happens is they put those paddles on. Like it's not paddles like you see in the movies, it's sticky pads. They put those great big sticky
Yeah.
pads on you. Right. So you put the sticky pads on and then they shock you because it's already on there. And then they shock you and shock you and shock you. Now, when they were doing that, nothing was coming back. So I wasn't coming back and they couldn't figure it out. And then they started doing the sternum rub. And then they started doing chest compressions, like hard. I didn't know you break
Yeah.
ribs in chest compressions. So I now
Yeah.
had broken ribs. They put that airbag on me and they pushed it so hard they popped out the vertebrae in my neck. So I went in the
Oh my god.
SVT. I came out. I woke up with a popped out vertebrae, broken ribs, bruised sternum, like you fell. And where they cardioverted me so many times, the coil of the cardioversion burnt in my skin like the coil of an oven, a stovetop oven, like burnt into me. So I came
Wow.
out after this event going, my body was like destroyed, just
Yeah.
destroyed, and I could barely move. And I was thinking, what the hell happened? Like, how did this happen? How did I get here? But as
Right.
you're trying to come back out, the funny thing about having control is now I'm broken and you destroyed my body for the purpose of bringing me back to a place that you never got my permission to bring me back from. Nobody
Right.
nobody said, "Hey, that control was taken from me." So that really frustrated me. I did not want to come back at all. My body was broken. And for what? Like, for what? So I was really angry. And then I got angry at God. And I just said, if this was the case, like, why wouldn't you just keep me there? Like, if you're this all loving God, why wouldn't you just keep me there? Like, why would you let me do this? And then I thought, well, maybe I'm a shitty human being. Maybe I deserve this. I'm like, what did I do? I clearly deserve this. So then my brain is, so
That hold on a second.
yeah,
That is such an interesting thing because I think all of us at some point turn the energy on ourselves and start going. I went into a depression as well. Like, am I not worthy? Why didn't I get to stay? There's all these kind of thoughts. It's like, and it really kind of gets in you. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Please keep going. But I had to. That is such a
but
key nugget right there.
that's normal for people who have had a near death experience. Here's my heart goes out to people who, good news, bad news. I was in the hospital with a ticker tape. So if you go to my website, this is one of the things I know the marketing people and the publicists and all that, they don't want that on my website. They're like, so I have a ticker at the top of my website and it's the heart rhythm strip from that night. And I'll be damned if I'm taking that down. I don't care about marketing. I don't care about image. That is what real life is all about. So on the top, you'll have how my heart was in SVT. Then you'll see a flat line and then you'll literally see the normal heart going back. That is life. That graphic is life in itself. So
Yeah.
when you come back, but that flat line in life is where we have the most trauma. My heart goes out to people who have had a near death experience, have come back, but have had nobody. Maybe they fell in their house, died, came to, and then now they still experience the same shift. They still will get the same darkness. They still will have the same light. They come to and they're like, whew, I don't know how long I was out for. Go to the hospital. There's no validation there. So good news or bad news, I
Right.
have validation, which does it make the journey easier? No, it doesn't. But it gives me the ability to explain with some sort of credibility that you're not nuts. And so when people
Yeah.
who don't have the validation of that and they come out and say, this happened to me, I'm going to tell you that you're not this is real with what's happening. And just because it's not validated, it is something that you better take seriously because you will have physiological after effects. This is very important to know. Every body that has shifted will have legitimate, proven, factual physiological after effects of a near-death experience. This is the truth. When the body shuts down and reboots again, we will have sensitivities. We will run to drugs and alcohol to numb it because we don't know how to cope with what's happening. That's normal.
Yeah.
We will have sensitivities to light, to sound, to darkness, to different energies when people walk into the room. Super sensitivities. We will have those. And I say this every time. Dr. Jeffrey Long, he doesn't even know I'm talking about him, but Dr. Jeffrey Long from United States, when I came back out, much like you, trying to prove I'm not nuts. So I had to validate with scientific evidence what happened, not what
Right.
happened, but that it didn't happen. I didn't want to be part of the nut group that had a near-death experience. I wanted to have,
Yep.
I wanted to be normal. When I popped out
That's
now,
such a
not normal. And
normal.
I did,
Yeah.
and so I have trouble now, 15 years later, I have trouble now with the word normal because there's no such thing as normal. But in my
That's true.
control world, I was normal in my control world. I pop out, not normal now. And
Yeah.
that in itself is a stigma in itself. Forget the mental illness stigma. Forget the near death stigma. The normal is another stigma. So now we wrap all of this up. Now you're really struggling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the idea of returning back to who you were is I chased that for a long
Me
time. I
too.
just wanted to go back to who I was. And it was so frustrating because it was impossible. And I really wanted it to work. And I was living in a very tight world. If I keep this water bottle here, and if I keep my phone here, and if I make sure I say my prayers, and if I do this, and everything is going to just, as long as I keep it just right, this is sustainable. There's pain, but it's sustainable until like you get that last piece of straw on the camel's back and it just breaks everything because you've been stressing the whole time. Yeah, I had to, part of my story is because you're trying to prove it wrong. You just want to be normal and everything like that. And you just want a little relief from the idea and maybe a little bit of closure. And at some point, I don't know when it happened, I was just like, this is real. And you have to accept it. There's like a process of accepting what happened because the whole time you've been disproving it. So it's almost like I think it probably started me with like a little bit of negotiation, like, okay, well, if this happened, then this must be there if this happened. So you started kind of like cracking the door to see maybe is it possible? Maybe is it possible? And you start talking to people who've had experiences and you're like, you tell them your story. That's the best thing. I've told my story to so many people and they look right back at me and they go, your story parallels a lot of stories. And I'm like, does it? Because I didn't know, you know what I mean? So that was relieving to me to find out that I wasn't the only one, that I wasn't losing my mind. Because that's another thing you're worried. You're like, am I losing it? Have I is this should I just be quiet and just hide all this or do I talk about it? And eventually you're like, I'm just going to talk about it. It's too real. I have the option to talk about it or not talk about it. And how bad would it suck to cross over the next time? And then whoever's on the other side, whatever your spiritual or higher power or God says, why didn't you tell people about what I showed you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
And
so
it's
I'd much rather share than not share now. Just so when I get to the other side, I'm just like, I think I did what I was supposed to do. But
the thing. So the thing that's cool is the bartering. I bartered. If I do, okay, so I'll let a little bit
yeah,
of this go.
negotiation.
Yeah, I did the negotiation, the bartering. I'll look behind the door,
Hmm.
like how much crazy is behind. When you come from a very factual, controlled, disciplined world, authoritative world, and now we're going to go behind the world of behind the veil, like that's kind of like, whoo, and I'm in a man's world. So now I'm a real estate broker. I'm in a man's world tried to be a real estate broker. So I got to be a pretty, I got to be a pretty tough chick. You can't come out and
Yeah.
start talking. You got to be careful. So I'm like, so I would barter. I'd give a little bit, but not too much. And I would negotiate a little here and there. And I thought, but there's an authentic part of me. So the authentic side of me is no, this is real. I surrendered and I'm like, no, this is real. This happened. But
Hmm.
now these are my sensitivities. So here's now what's happening. So now, because so I pulled all my hospital records and I've now since pulled more. What happened is when I went in, apparently they tried to resuscitate me, that struggled. And then when but they were resuscitating and resuscitating, and the resuscitation happened for between 32 to 38 minutes is what they were trying to figure it out. And then when they
Wow.
Narcaned me, they realized, because they figured it out clearly, I've got a ginormous high dose of Narcan. And then as soon as they
Hmm.
Narcan me, then I started coming out. So I thought it wasn't a near death. What I thought was I had a brain injury because maybe that's what's wrong with me. And then I thought,
Yeah.
maybe I should go to my priest. And then I thought, maybe I should go to a psychic. And then I thought, maybe I should go to a shrink. And then I kept thinking, there's got to be a real reason why this happened. Like, how did this happen? And then after that, 6 months later, 8 months later in May of the following year, I had my fourth heart surgery, and the survival rate was very low because they have to go in with wires, and it was quite a
Okay.
high risk. And I didn't care because I had
Okay.
$1 million life insurance, and I thought if I die on the table, then it wasn't suicide, and then my insurance
Right.
policy would kick in. That's where my control was going,
That
right?
this happens a lot. This happens a lot. I've talked to so many people and they're just like, well, if I die at this point, I die and I know that my family's going to be okay. So I'm not scared anymore. I'm like, that's so funny that that's what that experience has cultivated in some of us. It's like, okay, if I die, I know where I'm going. So let's live it today.
And
Anyways, yeah, go
that's
ahead.
how it was. So I had my fourth heart surgery, and then it was pretty aggressive, and he cured it. So I haven't had any more
Wow.
SVTs because I'm like, I don't care. I've got no more SVTs. So I have been cured, and I don't have any more arrhythmias. So there's a plus to that. So now I'm like,
Yeah.
well, shit, I'm stuck here. So now I guess what am I going to do now? Like, what am I going to do with this? I got a second chance. So let's not squander it. I got to do something. And then I wasn't good enough to do real estate. So then I got into a deep depression. So for about a year, I didn't leave the house. I didn't want to be here. And now I was cured. So now you're cured that you've had something since you were all your life. It canned your police career. So now I got ripped apart my police career. Now I'm cured. I'm now in my 30s ish. I'm never going to be a policeman now. So I don't have a police career. Now I'm cured. So big deal. Now what am I
Right.
supposed to? Yes, I'm a real estate broker. I didn't even want to do real estate. So I'm like, okay, so I just, I felt lost. I had no identity all over again. I didn't want to be here. I tried so hard to find purpose. I didn't have authenticity within me. I was in just chaos. And then I thought,
Did you get any
hmm,
did you get any thought of, like, how this world actually isn't kinda real? Like, the
yeah,
way we treat one another after seeing the other side, you're like, "I don't wanna play this game. It's not real. It's about manipulation. Everyone's out for themselves." So you kind of, like, really have this depression over where you're stuck now because it's like, it's not real. Like, I know what it feels like on the other side, which is all love, and then you come to this world back and it's cold. It is. It's
it is.
cold in comparison.
And it's so funny because my mom was alive then. Thank God my mom was alive. And she's very Catholic. She's very Christian, very, very Christian. She watches her church. She watched her church programs and she reads the Bible. Like she's very devout Christian, very devout Catholic. And we would talk and she'd be like, okay. So I said, and we talked about death and hell and all this stuff. And I said, Mom, there is no hell. This is hell, Mom. This is hell. Here is hell. We are going to heaven. We, this is not, it's not like this is heaven on earth. This is
Right.
hell. And where we go is heaven. So we have to navigate hell. There's no such thing as hell. We're living it. So this is so cold. And if one person, if one person at a time, if I could change just one person's life, just one, it makes the rest of the collective a little bit better. So how do
Yeah.
I do that? How do I reach people? And then I realized not only how cold it is, I sat back and I looked around in this illusion of what we're trying to do. So, Cameron, I gave everything away. Like, you have to appreciate, we had a big house. Like, we had a real
Mhm.
estate house. We had like 2 cars. We had the image of what real estate should be. I gave it
Right.
away. I gave everything away. I Kijiji did. I gave all that. I didn't want it. I gave all the
Wow.
material possession. I sold the house. And I make a
Wow.
joke now because our relationship, what I was before, the go-getter, the money, the hunt, the negotiation, the sold, the go, it's like, that's not real. That's all crap. That's so you don't need
Yeah.
we have 5 TVs. Why do we have 5 TVs? How stupid. Why do we have 5 TVs? So I'm like, we're getting rid
Yeah.
of it. That's when the relationship started with people, it started changing because the person who I was that they come to expect is no longer that person. And they're like, where is she? Because I was in
Mhm.
society, I was within the industry, I was a voice, and now I am what is wrong with her? Like, what happened to her? And then when
Mhm.
people started being like, what happened? And I'm like, "Boop," and then I started not talking, and that's when I shut
Yeah.
down because I'm just trying to go back to normal, but this isn't normal. So the loss between normal and not normal shut me down. I said nothing, and then I went darker into despair, and nobody could
Yeah.
reach me. So I say, and I don't joke about this, but I make light of it saying everything in my life, I got rid of it all. Like, because it didn't serve my purpose. So I would say,
Right.
you got rid of the marriage, you got rid of the house, you got rid of the furniture. You just literally stripped everything down to 2 things: my soul, myself, and relationships. And some of the
Mhm.
relationships I got rid of as well because it was like, they're not working. So that's when I just
Yeah.
weeded everything out and everything about my life changed. So that survival mode to try to find normal, that was,
Mhm.
you know, that was the hardest to date in my life. That has been the hardest thing that I've had to work on is try to be normal. Once you find authenticity within yourself, there's no more talking normal. You get your
I
roots, you
love it.
get your
Yeah.
feet. Now I'm like, now I get the game of life. It's a game.
Yeah.
This is a game, and we're all playing a game, and some are gonna play it better than others, and if you don't know the
Mhm.
rules of engagement, you don't know the rules of the game, it's going to swallow
Right.
you. So you better learn
Mhm.
the rules quickly. And now I've mastered the rules, and now I've got one last kick at this cat, and I'm not gonna go out. I'm not gonna squander it. I'm gonna go out loud and proud, and I'm gonna go
Yeah.
out. It's I'm gonna make the best of it. And that's when I got into the next part of survival. So the surviving now, I realized I had to survive. So
Mhm.
now in surviving, what does that look like? So like I said, there's 3 parts. The 3 parts are I'm a victim. Well, I was hardcore victim because I was a victim of circumstance that I didn't ask for. So I had to work
Mhm.
through all of that. And then I got to be
Right.
into survival. So into survival was research, talking to people, reaching out, sharing my story, cutting people out of my life, getting rid of the house, I survival was the 3 things of my mind, the body, and our energy. It became clear
Mhm.
that we are 3. The mind is trying to make sense of it. The mind is researching. The mind is the textbook. This is where Dr. Jeffrey Long came in. And listen, the man saved me because he does research on near death survivors and the physiological after effects of what happened. And so at that time when I was going through everything, people really loved me and they just wanted me to get back to normal. So I started journal
Yeah.
writing. My husband said, you know what? Journal write. So I put all my writing into a journal. I did this very private, intimate journal about how bad it was and what I was doing. was really good. I was estranged from one of my family members. They're like, well, you had this near death experience, so let me read it. So I let them read my journal. Like, stupid. But when your body, when your nervous system is in so much chaos and crisis, your brain is in lockdown, and it's meant to be that way because the body will survive. The nervous
Yeah.
system will survive, but the brain has to shut down so the body can do its job. So when my nervous system and my was in such chaos, my brain wasn't doing good decisions. So I let people read
Mm.
my journal writings. Then it's like, this is so good, this should be a book. So what did I do? I wrote a book, and it's horrible. I don't like it. It's my journal writings. It's sold 5 to 6,000 copies. It's called Heaven Time. It's confusing. I got another book coming out, which is going to explain it. But the book was put out there because it was supposed to be like a profit center, and we're going to make money and get her back to normal. So what did I do? I gave most of the books away. I gave some of the books away. Some of them I sold. I did big speaking events, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
sell them individually. I said, come to the speaking event, you pay for it, and then they all got a book. The book has changed lives because you get to see how badly confused the brain is when the nervous system is shot. So
Right.
that book then opened up a portal. So I started now doing speaking, and first responders came to me. People who have had deaths in their house. Because remember, I have put my real estate license on hold now because I couldn't do it. I would walk into houses and I would kind of feel the energy juju of a house, and I thought I was crazy. And I'd be like, what happened here? So I had trouble doing real estate. So I started speaking.
Mm-hmm.
First responders came to me and said, okay, well, now that you can go between two worlds, here's where first responders are struggling, where they emotionally struggle. They come across a scene, they have to render help to a victim. The victim's body is not able to sustain life. They can see it by the injuries. But the victim, if you will, or the patient, if you will, is still talking, but has a very small window, 3, 5, 7 minutes. And they're saying, I'm
Mm.
not going to make it. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to die. Please tell my wife. Please tell my child. Please, please, please. The responder is stuck in that moment and saying, I don't know what to say in that window. I don't know what to say in that darkness. I see. So they're like, no, no, you're going to be okay. Stay with me. It's okay. That patient is saying, just validate me. Just validate me right now. I know I'm not going to make it. You know I'm not going to make it. Just share the last few minutes you have with me. Take my last messages and just validate that moment with me. So I started doing more talks like that, and then more talks. And then I started getting into stigmatized properties in North America, where I go and I help realtors and I help people, victim services, where people have passed away in a home or some tragedy happened. And then I go in and I work on the energy of the home. I work with the people. I try to sell. I help the agents. So I kind of like I'm a little fixer healer in between. And that's what I do in the real estate industry. When shit is hitting the fan, I just come in to calm things down and bridge it over to peace and harmony. So that's where I have found my purpose in where I'm sitting. That's
I
where
love it.
that's the that's the moral of the story of where I'm sitting today.
It's amazing. It's like a full circle. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? You don't realize it, but when you come back to it, you're like, what? I'm back where I was, but I feel better. You know, it's like, it's unbelievable. And one of the biggest transitions that you mentioned there is like, how is that moment where you're like, I have to choose to live authentically to what happened to
Yeah.
me and because you're trying to please both things. You're trying to well, first off, for me, I was trying to come back to who I was just because I liked who I was. I didn't want to change. I hated that this had happened. Two, though, is when you come back from the near death experience and you have all these things that you're talking about that no one else has experienced, they look at you like you're crazy. So it's almost easier to basically like I don't know if the right word is comply, but to almost like play the part of who you were
Yeah.
because that's who they're used to, because you don't want to deal with the questions with like, you've changed. And you're like, oh, I know I probably have changed. I don't understand what's going on. I can't explain it to myself, let alone you. So you're just like almost advocating, I'll just be this person for now until it's so powerful what you're working on, what you're walking in, that it just starts popping out in your life. And yes, you may lose some relationships. Like some people may
Yeah.
actually blow you off or whatever. You actually more likely are going to cut ties with people as well, because you're going to tell them something that's vulnerable about yourself, that's important to you. And if they come back with criticism or whatever it is, you're like, well, you're not a safe person to talk to about this. I want to talk to somebody I care and love about this, but it turns out that's not you. So you have to kind of plot your chart, figure out who's going to be part of that circle. And I don't know about you, but my circle got a lot smaller.
Smaller.
Yep. And now that I've had time with that small circle, it's starting to grow a little bit. Now, I do understand now, after I got shot and basically everyone on my department wouldn't come around me, nor would the people who were friends with me prior to me being a police officer want to come around me. I felt very alone and abandoned. And you just think, well, I did everything you told me to. I said what you wanted me to say. Like, where are you? Where are the promises coming true? Anyone who's out there in law enforcement has been hurt. It turns out the brotherhood turns into a business really quick. So they get you away from the pack in the back office, and they're assessing you to see if you are a piece of equipment that still works. And if you're not, they don't want you around the pieces of equipment that still do. And that's a kind of like dumbed down way to put it, and maybe a little bit brutal, but it is true. It's very true, because if you're saying I have PTSD, this happened, like, they unfortunately don't want to share that with the rest of the department, because they don't want to deal with the rest of the department if they all have problems too.
Well,
Um,
Cameron, that's actually a really good thing that you touch on. That's hugely profound, because three things why it's profound. Profound number one, when you got into the department, before you got into that department, I'm going to talk from a recruiting point of view. When you go through the recruit process, you are a human being that you have come with all this baggage, all this stuff, all this baggage. And what they do is they look at the core of you and they say, can we make something of this mold? Can we break it down? Can we mold this thing so I can have
right,
it marching on the street? So they put you
right,
through recruiting process. They break you down to what you were. They clean it up. They rebox you. They repackage you. They re-imprint you,
hmm,
indoctrinate you. They get that little box. And God love our first responders. I'm not bashing the first responders. That's not the point here. They
right,
re-imprint you into what and who they need you to be so you can do the job on the street to keep the rest of the people safe. So now they've taken what was an identity, they bastardized it a little bit, put it into a nice little box, put you out there on
hmm,
the street. You go on the street, shit happens, it goes bad. You come back and say, okay, the box is broken and this is what's happening. They're like, well, let's quickly get rid of that box because we can't let that box infect the other stuff. So now what they did is they took that beautiful identity of what they gave you, the brotherhood of what was happening. Now you have not only an identity that you had a brotherhood, you had a sanctuary, you had a safety net, and now you go, you're not fitting in the mold anymore. So we got to do something with you. So we're just going to offset you and kick you out there a little bit. So now you no longer have the identity that was created. You're no longer part of a brotherhood. Now you're fully abandoned. Now you're totally left on your own. So not only did you have this incident that happened, which has left you the reason why we're having trouble. So that's the second compounding layer. So we move all of that aside and they're like, well, go figure it out. So as we're figuring it out, we're trying to find a new identity. And one of the things in life that is the hardest is when people have an identity crisis, when a woman has an only child and she's a mother and that child is no longer in her life. She's no longer now a mom. So she's lost her identity of being a mom. When I was married and no longer was married, I was no longer some man's wife. An identity of losing to not be a wife for for my husband, I lost that identity of it. And that was
Right.
hard for me. So when you lose the identity, that is a trauma in itself. So there's
Yeah.
layer on layer on layer of stuff that's happening. So
It's
that's
like,
why,
who am I now? Who
yeah.
am I now?
And the nutshell to this is the moral of the story is very simply, who are you is always who you've always been. You've just forgotten. So
Yeah.
when you find your true authentic self and how people are like, you got to put some verbs in those sentences. Here's why we struggle. Because when we are trying to please two people, I just love this saying, you can't ride two horses with one ass. You got to
Yeah.
pick a saddle. And so the saddle that you're picking, you have to say when you're doing something, does this bring me joy? Is this who I am? So of course we have to pick up dog poop. Of course we have to wash laundry. I'm saying when I'm doing my work today and I'm going out to speak, I get invites to speak at lots of different podcasts. I don't
Mhm.
I don't pick them all. I've picked 7 out of 300. 7.
Oh, wow.
So, and I thank you for this because I have to feel trust. I have to feel safe. And so
Right.
that's what I do is I pick where I feel safest. And that's why it's an honor to be here because I feel safe. And so that's why I'm happy to share to get it out there so people can live in their truest authentic form. But
Yeah.
I also want to support the first responders because without them, I don't have an ambulance. I don't have a fireman. I don't have a policeman. I know that the
Right.
job is tough. I get it. And if I can support them in any way, I do want to support them because
Right.
they are our pillar. But I don't want
Mhm.
them to feel abandoned. So
Right.
that's why I'm trying to do the work I do now not only for real estate agents, but for first responders, for talking. It's just the bridge. And you are that beautiful bridge that I'm honored to walk on and build with you.
Lori, you are amazing. I don't know how many gold nuggets you've dropped during this conversation, but it has been very impactful to me. And I know it's going to land on a lot of people as, man, it's just, and for me, selfishly, it's good to know that someone else kind of like had the moments where, I mean, you're right. You have a loss of identity. And especially when you've had a near death experience, like you said, you got to choose which horse you're going to ride on. One of them's authentic, which is actually it did happen. And then the other one is pleasing to other people around you to almost like survive the day. But if you choose pleasing the people around you, you don't realize it, but you're actually sacrificing the authentic person and you will feel that pain. You know, you'll feel it in you. That depression is like, I'm pleasing everyone else, but not myself. But for some reason, we try to be in people's good graces because it does feel safe, I guess. You know, it
Mhm.
does feel in a way like if I appeal to you, um, you know, maybe you'll take care of me. Or it's just a weird thing that we play on ourselves. But the truth is, what recovery looks like is living the authentic road, going down it, knowing that you don't know the answers, but knowing that it's the truth. You know,
Yeah,
and the truth is more important than the game that Earth appears to be after
to-
coming back from a near death experience.
totally. So the very simple way to think of it this way is this. So our nervous system is saying, oh my God, I've got to be normal, which means I've got to go on the path where I'm going to tell people what they want to hear. I'm very good at this. After the death of the child and I was born into my family, my mom wanted a certain daughter because she was grieving. So I was
Hmm.
the daughter from my mom that she wanted. So I morphed into that. My dad wanted a tomboy and he wanted somebody who was smart in business and you use your brain. And so I was a fisherman because my dad, baseball, sports. So I
Right.
was my dad's daughter. And then my sisters, and then they each had an idea. One had beauty, one had brains, then my brothers, and everybody had an idea of what they wanted for me. So I grew up, fortunate for me, I grew up very early on not being who I am. I was just one of the things in the ride, I just grew up what everybody wanted me to be. So one of the things where I actually found
Hmm.
out who I was is when you sit in a ride along with a cop and you're doing it, there's 10, 12 hours sitting there. And
Yeah.
it's not like you're doing everything. So the cop will always say to you, because he's trying to get to know you, and he would say, "So, well, who are you? Well, like what makes you tick?" And so I'd be like, "Shit. Okay, what does he want?" And I'm like, "Do you like sports?" Uh, I guess. So what makes you tick? Like, what do you do for fun? I'm thinking, what does he want me to do for fun? And I
Right.
realized for that very first moment in 14, 15, 16, 17, I have no idea who the hell I am because I've been everything to everybody. And so when the cop is actually sitting there going, who is this person in my passenger seat? What do he's trying to assess when we get into that's what he's doing. He's not trying to figure out who I am as a human being. He's assessing what situation and where is this person going to be in a situation. He's just plotting his assessment. That's all he's doing. But
Yeah.
when he's assessing me, I have no idea because I'm like, okay, so I would get the rules. I learned we adapt. I would get the rules early on in a police ride along. I'd be like, okay, what are we looking for? And he'd spill his guts. Okay, this is what I want. Blah, 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 blah. And I would, what about this? Da, da, da. And he tells me all the answers. So then 7 hours in, when he's like, so tell me about yourself. Well, I was like literally Chat GPT before Chat GPT was cool.
Yeah.
I was telling him everything that he wanted to hear. And he's like, oh man, you're just a rock star. Well, you programmed it that way. So when I
Yeah.
realized there is a person here, and I didn't realize that until in that moment I was dying, that my body and my soul were two totally different things. I realized I
Mm.
didn't know who and what I was and what I could contribute to the earth. A lot of people do that. So the authentic way to do life is very, very simple. When people come to me and they say, my life is falling apart, there's only one answer. It's because you're trying to appease, your nervous system is out of control right now. And you're thinking, your brain is, I'm going to calm that down, give everybody what they need, and then life's going to go better. The problem is that is putting you so far off the path that's putting you into the biggest shitstorm of your life. So I want to
Right.
pull you off that and give you confidence, because all people who love you they just want you to get it together. Whoever you are now, I love you. I love you. I just want you to give me who you are so I can keep loving you. You're like, no,
Mhm.
no, you tell me who you want. They're like, no, no, you tell me who you are. But that person is
Mhm.
too scared to figure out who they are because it comes with the fear of abandonment, the fear of not being normal, comes
Yeah.
with the fear of the unknown. So when you realize that living the fully most authentic life you can live is actually putting you on the green grass and making life easier.
Yeah.
If you're on the rough and things aren't going good, just stop and look around and see how many people you're pleasing. Just
Mhm.
look around and then you'll
Yeah.
realize, oh, that's not true. That's not true. So the easiest way to do it, to build the bridge and hand them a paddle, is say, find the authenticity in everything you do, whether it's washing your clothes, playing with your kids, playing with your dog, cleaning your yard, doing business, writing emails. Be the authentic person that you are going to be, and life will flow in the flow of the river. You won't be gritting to stand. You'll be riding down the river and you'll be loving it. That's how we need
Yeah.
to live life.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
We
a
need to.
lot.
Yeah, I know. I know. But man,
Easier said than done,
it's,
but it
it,
is
we,
easy. It is easy. It's just fearful.
I'm working on it now. I don't know why, like, I get to this point where, like, things will be bad. And what I'll do is I'll kind of like quiet it down and I'll come back to me. But then I go out in the world and for some reason I get frazzled and now I'm trying to, play to win or whatever it may be, which is taking me off of like kind of, I don't know, it frazzles whatever's inside. It's just so interesting how the world does that, even through marketing and like sales campaigns. It's like you think you're totally full, and then someone says, "Well, the phone you bought last year isn't any good anymore, and you look bad with the old one." And it's like that's not even true, but we're listening to it. It's actually like in a way coming in this because we're the only ones living in here in this vessel. We're the only ones. The only way that information comes in and affects us is if we kind of let it in and we assess it either as true or negative, instead of just letting some of the leaves go down the stream, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was told by a therapist one time, like, I was always trying to like understand everything that was going in my head. I was like obsessive about it. I needed to label and pick up every leaf that was floating down the stream. And then she told me, you don't have to do that. You can just let them float by. You aren't all your thoughts. And because I really thought for a long time, I'm my thoughts. Why am I thinking this way? Why am I doing this? And I was really hard on myself. And then just giving myself the grace and being like, it's okay. You are what you are. You're working through it. You're doing great. And working on self-love, which I had none. And then, not needing other people to tell you that you're doing okay and just relying on yourself, knowing that you're doing your best. And, so less of an outside presence
Mhm.
telling you you're okay. It's more of an inside saying, I'm good. And then you kind of go out there and help other people. We
As
could
long
talk all day, couldn't we?
as long as it's I'm good and you're really good, meaning because
Mhm.
I said everybody would be like, "How I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good." Really, I'm
Yeah.
just really not good. So yeah, this is we could totally talk all day, but it's funny what bad is. So for me now, there's no such thing as bad. I'll tell you
Right.
something. There, there's no such thing as bad and there's no such thing as good. Because here's what happens when it filters. Our brain is literally the computer chip. So whatever
Hmm.
cause and response are we're getting. So we're getting a stimulus, it goes through the computer chip, and then the computer chip spits out a response. So
Hmm.
something will come to us. So an example is when something comes to us and it's like, oh my God, look what happened. So let's do if there's an appointment. If an appointment is coming and we can't do the appointment, I'm like, oh no,
Hmm.
that's not the appointment. And then you panic and then you stop for 1 second and be like, hold on, because I wasn't well enough to have an appointment. I'm like, what a blessing. So there's no good, there's no bad. Everything in this dimension, in this plane, is neutral. It's how you're
Right.
spinning it is what we're doing. So now if something comes in and if you fall, like I cracked my knee, for example. In
Okay.
December, I cracked my knee and I hurt my left knee. So it's been hurting. It's been a pain in the butt. It's slowing me down. But that's that is what happened. So am I a victim? No, I go, oh, well, this is pretty good. I can't run out there and walk my dog. I can't pick up dog poop. I can't do this. I can't do this. That's good news. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to slow down a little bit and I'm going to wait. I'm going to give myself 3 months and I have a plan. One of the tips and tricks in your cheat sheet code in this game of life is because of a military or discipline background, there was always a discipline. So, for example, when something changes in my schedule, that is always going to happen. Always going to happen because people are human. So
Right.
I already know that right now. So my rule of my cheat sheet code is no matter what happens in a schedule, good, bad, indifferent, it doesn't matter because I'm just going to rebook. So the rule is I leave extra gaps of time. When you book yourself so tight, you start to panic. So I
Yeah.
have little cheat sheet codes for myself that I just do in life. Number two, I always make sure I eat breakfast every morning. And I always
Hmm.
bathe and I put on makeup. Why? I don't do that because I like it. I do it because the days that I don't, and if I stay in pajamas, it's an easy slip to start going into depression. So
Yeah.
I have to put on makeup. I have to bathe. I put on perfume every day, every day. Nobody sniffs me, but I put on perfume every day because you have to. So I made cheat sheet codes for myself so I don't slip.
Right.
And that's why I will have supper with my son every week. Every week I will have supper with my son. And that's to stay connected. Once a week, I will always see one of my friends. We will always do something. One of my friends phones me every day. We talk every day. I have cheat sheets that keep me on the path because when a slip happens, you've got the backup there. That's a little bit of a helper when you don't know. The problem is, don't make the cheat sheet codes when your nervous system is in chaos. Like you say,
Right.
calm down, detach, get good, and find some really good cheat sheet codes for you where you find yourself slipping. And you'll be adding it. You'll add more and more and more. And that is
Yeah.
what helps get through this world. It just makes this world a little bit easier to navigate. I don't shop. Here's another thing. I go grocery shopping once every 3 weeks.
Oh, cool.
I hate
You
grocery
just get
shopping.
yeah.
So that's what I do.
That's awesome. Man,
Okay, so that
what
was a
great
lot.
stuff. It's such great stuff, and I was about to say something about my brain that I think is just overflowing with ideas. It's just so interesting, the game that we play with ourselves, and at the end of the day, it's it kind of smacks you in the face and is very humbling, but when you do go full circle, you're like, "The world wasn't the problem. It
I'm the
was me."
problem. Yeah,
Yep. I
I'm the
am my
problem.
biggest problem. So now when I pray, I actually pray to God to protect me from
Self.
myself. Cause I can be erratic if I'm panicked. I can be v- for a long time there with my PTSD, I would get into situations and I was ready to die on a hill over the smallest thing. Someone could cut me off. I'd be willing to, tell them they're a terrible person. And that makes no sense because that's affecting me more than it's affecting them. So
Yeah.
I was constantly almost like the cause of myself unraveling. And I thought it was the world, but really, again, when you go through this process and you start taking at some point you start taking like absolute responsibility even when things happen to you. You're like, well, this happened, like you said, is I'm not going to define it as good or bad. It's like, what can I do with this? And sometimes the things that we feel were meant to take us out end up being something that's so positive, almost saved. Like getting shot saved my life. It saved my life because I wouldn't have handled the little kid trauma, which I know was eating away at me. I didn't want to admit it or anything like that. But without being shot, I wouldn't be who I am today. And it came with a lot of pain. The other thing, too, is like, I'd never ask God, like, I in high school, everyone's like, oh, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, I'm going to be this. I actually was like, I'm not sure what I'm going to be, but I want to have a really good story. So it's like, be careful what you wish for because you're going to get a good story. And now I realize after I've come full circle, I'm like, thank you, God. You did it. Like you've given me a story and a purpose. Like how blessed am I? Like how spoiled am I? You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
turns into this like I wasn't punished, I was picked. And it's like they're so exciting, you know what I mean? And when you can have like a kind heart and meet people when they're in panic and in chaos and be like, I know the feeling that you're going through right now to an extent
Yeah.
in my world.
Yeah.
I but you're not alone. And I got to experience that in a couple different environments, which I think has been very helpful to me. One was AA. I didn't believe that these strangers cared about me. I'm like, get away from me. I just need to get sober. And then by the end of it, it doesn't matter what, job you have. I've sat next to lawyers, high caliber, and I've sat next to homeless people. I've sat next to men and women. I've talked to young and old. We're all there for one thing. We have a problem with alcohol and that brings us together. It makes us the same people. It's like being a member of the police department again. Everyone got broken down, built up the same way. And like we share a common trait and it's actually pretty beautiful. Lorri, again, we could talk all day,
Yes.
but I'm going to have to cut
Thank
us
you.
off. It's been
Yes.
such a pleasure. And thank you so much for all the information. It has helped me tremendously. And I believe it's going to help a lot of people out there tremendously.
I'm glad.
I am going to make sure, again, I put all your information in the bio. So anyone listening, check out the bio so you can get a hold of Lorri and either get the books, get some information, whatever it takes. She's an asset, she's a resource. And I hope that you guys take advantage. And without that, I mean, thank you so much again. Much appreciated. Until next time.
Cameron, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Lorri, for sharing your story. What really stands out is that this wasn't an instant transformation. It was a process of rebuilding identity, clarity, and trust in herself after everything changed. I can definitely relate. If you're listening and you're in your own version of Shit Creek, I hope this gave you something grounded to take with you. If this episode resonated, please subscribe, share it, and we'll see you on the next one.